This is an INGENIUM University podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the INGENIUM podcast. This is the final episode of season 1 of the podcast. It's been a really great run so far. We've really enjoyed it, and we look forward to season 2, which we will start recording in September. So this is really going to be the wrap-up podcast. So Tom, what are we going to talk about in this episode?
Yeah, so I suppose, Jeremiah, we will kind of maybe talk a little bit about our key learnings, maybe, and highlights from the conversation that we've had as part of season 1, and also maybe what we're looking forward to in next season's episode of the INGENIUM podcast. But before that, we're joined by Dr. Michael Hall, newly appointed INGENIUM IPC here at MTU. And I suppose Michael's been ever present in all aspects of the INGENIUM Alliance since the start and today. And we wanted to maybe just have a chat and hear from him about his experiences and you know how he's found it to date.
Okay, so Michael, thanks for taking the time to speak to Thomas and I. So you've recently been appointed as the INGENIUM Project Coordinator, or IPC, for MTU. Maybe just to start, for our listeners, you could briefly give us a bit of background about yourself, maybe your kind of academic background and your involvement with INGENIUM before joining as IPC.
Okay, thanks, Jeremiah. Nice to be here. I have had a long career in academia. I think I lived in fear of doing the same thing again the next day and the next year. So I have tried to have as much experience as possible in different roles in the Institute of Technology, as it was, and now Munster Technological University. So I have been lecturer and principal investigator. I have been vice president academic affairs. I've been head of school, been head of department. And now with INGENIUM partner coordinator. This is just a really interesting role. It involves direct and continuous collaboration with our European partners, and it's a project I really believe in. And I think for Ireland is part of the European Union, and I think maybe I have kind of a European mindset, which I think helps, but it also means that I'm, as well as my colleagues, are open to lots of different viewpoints, lots of different opinions, and distilling those down into something that we can work with.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the European mindset, I think all three of us have been fortunate to travel to various locations, different INGENIUM universities, and I think it's amazing to meet everybody and you get to see that shared mindset. I think that's always really evident when we travel. So I think that's kind of a nice connecting point between all the European universities.
Yeah, and you've been involved in a lot of the projects and the work packages and the 10 days of INGENIUM event. So I suppose in the first instance, Michael, what motivated you to get involved in INGENIUM?
I think about the whole idea really attracts me. The idea that we build upon what we have already. I think MTU does things really well, but I don't know how well in some ways. Or obviously there are other ways of doing things, and that interested me. I never ever thought, being a biochemist and being interested in exercise physiology, that I'd ever think quality assurance would be a thing that I'd actually would light my fire a little bit, but. I've really been interested in how quality assurance processes can actually be used to the benefit of universities or collaborations. And when I saw Work Package 2 at the beginning of the project, I thought this is a quality assurance framework to guide the formation of the university and the rollout or development and rollout of academic programs. I said, yeah, I really want to do this. And the whole idea, it was European, it was quality assurance, and it was an opportunity for me to explore this, was something that I think I'd have fought for at that stage. I really wanted to have a go at this.
Okay, and from there now, Michael, you've been very successful to apply for the role and get the role as IPC here in MTU. So what has been your experience of the post so far?
Okay, I think maybe I had a bit of a an apprenticeship lead into this. I started in Work Package 2, and then I saw Work Package 4 was the development of joint programs, and I actually asked to be involved in that, and that brought me to the Quality Assurance Committee, and I developed lots of contacts, lots of friends within INGENIUM, and I think I believe more and more strongly that this was the way that all of our respective universities needed to go. When John McSweeney, my predecessor, was moved to head of faculty, I said I'm going to go for this because Sean and I have similar mindsets. We had a similar vision, if you like, of where this would go, and I took the opportunity and I set out my vision for the benefits to MTU and INGENIUM itself, and thankfully I was successful, and here I am.
I guess you've kind of hinted at this already in terms of working with Work Package 2 and Work Package 3, but I'm curious, what are the things that you kind of enjoy most about being involved with INGENIUM? So, I mean, have there been any highlights for you or anything that you found particularly interesting or exciting to date? Okay.
I like travel, and I think students and staff who are open to travel, I think this is a great aspect and an attractive aspect of working in a university. The other is that I really enjoy the people involved in INGENIUM. The universities are universities, but people aren't just people. There's loads of people. Some people are really direct with you and say, I don't understand that, you need to explain. And others, they don't understand, but they're not really saying it, they're waiting for you to almost pick up on. So you get all types of people, and it's fantastic because you get different viewpoints, and I think we're collectively becoming more, maybe tolerant is too strong a word, but we understand each other. We understand the different cultures and the different mindsets, if you like, within Europe. Even though we're all European, we're all different, and we need to embrace that difference because we're not all trying to be the same. We're trying to understand each other and our differences and our backgrounds and that. And this is a great place to do it because there's a common purpose, which is independent of all of our cultures in the INGENIUM project, and it's really pro-staff, pro-student approach to developing this collaboration, this university alliance, and I think it's all for the right reasons.
And that's really interesting. That came up over and over again in the different episodes, like that cultural negotiation, which is really interesting. And it's interesting to hear it from you. You've got so much professional experience, but for the students that have been involved in this, like they're getting a real leg up by going to the 10-day schools and having that kind of cultural experience, and they've talked about that, about kind of meeting each other in the middle and so on. So I think that's really interesting. That's always one of the big benefits of this, I think.
Yeah, I think I think the students work really hard when they're there, but I've never seen hard work being so much fun when they're out there, when they're working, when they're talking with others, when they're trying to work out problems that they have been given, and learning new perspectives and totally different perspectives, totally different viewpoints, and very rarely that you don't see a student smiling and students really getting in there and engaging, because there's the opportunity to do it. You're away from home, there's what have you got to lose? Go in there and get stuck in, so to speak.
Yeah, and we'd encourage anyone that does go there to have that kind of mindset of being open to meeting people, different cultures, different experiences, and I think, Michael, that's a nice message there for staff and students maybe to get stuck in. Michael, as you're aware, INGENIUM recently received its midterm report. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means going forward for the INGENIUM Alliance?
Yeah, the midterm report was really interesting because it was the first objective review or scrutiny of progress to date. And I think we were all quite nervous, not least the individual leaders. There's 10 work packages, each has a leader from different universities. And I think they were all quite nervous and quite anxious to give our best show what we have done, because we really feel that we're moving forward. The report came back, and I liked the report because, having been involved in other committees and panels and that, you don't really say, oh, everything is fine. You have to you have to dig deep and say, I think you could do this better, I think you could do that better. So the report, when you view any report positively, it's a pathway to move forward. And I think the report reflected evolving thinking of the European Commission, because it's the Commission is moving on to say less of include the numbers of what happened, but we want to know what's the impact on people. How does this make life different, better for individuals, the students and the staff, and everybody else that's involved, the associate partners, the companies and everything. So they really were digging deep and pushing us to say, you need to push ahead now. Our thinking is changing, and we want you to respond to this by saying, go right into the individual person and how INGENIUM has improved or has transformed or empowered that person.
Is there kind of a clear plan or approach to measure that impact at the individual level, or is that something that's still kind of being teased out following the review following everyone looking at the report?
Yeah, it's funny you should say. Even this week now, I've attended 3 meetings where impact was mentioned. It's impact on top of the metrics being the numbers of people who attended and that. So what we need to do now is, when we do something, we're not just counting the number of people who attend. We are counting and getting a narrative from the individuals of how did now, you've done this, how do you feel now? How do you feel it has impacted? Are you going to use this? So what the impact and what changes in the person have taken place, because that's what it's all about. It's certainly beyond the numbers. It is about us as in MTU, for example, encouraging students to visit more universities in Europe. It's about encouraging the European mindset, is encouraging young people to actually interact with each other and be proud of who they are. And likewise for staff of the university to develop friendships, to develop collaborations with the universities and develop research interests and teaching interests too.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, because the numbers tell a particular story, but the impact of individuals is so important, because you might have 50 students do something, but that same experience can be absolutely transformative for 1 or 2 of them. It can be life-changing in a very positive way, and so capturing that, I think that's really great to hear that there's kind of an emphasis on that.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's important that the INGENIUM Alliance has the accountability, like that it is. Yeah. So now it has to report back, so it actually has to show that impact. So I think that's nice going forward, that now that impact has to be clearly stated and clearly seen and clearly evidenced, like as we move forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is, the funding we're getting represents an investment by the European Commission in its policy and in its strategy and in its own vision. And by taking on the funding, by taking on the project, we're responsible, we're accountable for actually making a difference. And I think the next 18 months, 2 years of this project, I think there's already a renewed motivation and enthusiasm and a renewed, we get it now, kind of attitude to say that it's we need to dig deep at this stage and make a difference.
Actually, that's kind of a good point about getting an interim report like that. It focuses your enthusiasm. Like you said, there's a renewed enthusiasm. It's, you can be working on a particular set of things, but until someone outside looks at them and says, okay, maybe this can be done better, or you should do this next. And then that kind of renews your focus. I think that's really helpful. And it's probably a good way to think about it. Maybe moving on from that then, I know you're involved in the For EU for All initiative, which is a network of EU funded alliances. Maybe you could kind of explain that a little bit more. What is it? What is your involvement in that?
Okay. I attended a meeting on about For EU for All maybe about a year ago. it has received renewed funding from the European Commission, and it was something. It's a network. First of all, it's a network of the alliances. There are 64, 65 alliances representing about 570 European universities. So to coordinate and to exchange practices, to exchange experiences, and to learn about each other, this network has been formed, which is about sharing experiences, and that. So that in itself is great, but they have focused their sharing, if you like, into 20 or 22 topical groups. And I've found myself being involved in the topical group called Cooperation for Ukraine, which is personally great for me because I have been volunteering. I have been supporting our Ukrainian students in MTU. We have about 160, 170 of them since more or less March 2022. So I have formed or I'm involved in various developing collaborations with universities in Ukraine. So I find that there are similarly like-minded people across the For You For All alliance and our network of alliances, and we meet on a regular basis to exchange what we're doing, what potential there is, and this aligns with EU thinking, which is gradually providing funding opportunities to cooperate with universities and with local government in Ukraine. Because they are a candidate state, so they're very quickly becoming our new friends, if you like, in terms of the wider European approach. But it's really nice, and among the other topical groups, likewise, individuals from INGENIUM are involved in those, and they're finding again they're like-minded individuals and the wherewithal to exchange good practices, and to learn things as well. So it's a really interesting, and I think it's really necessary alliance that we can actually see what other people are doing in, as I said, up to 570 universities. It's an amazing experience to be able to be in touch, or potentially be in touch, with so many universities in the European alliances.
It's so important to have that, to share good practice in terms of this alliance building, because I guess it's new for a lot of people. But just on the Ukraine project there, or initiative that you were talking about, is that linked to or separate or kind of connected to the universities of sanctuary? Isn't that kind of an initiative that happens where like refugees are in kind of war-torn places can travel, like researchers and lecturers and so on?
Yeah, it is. It runs in parallel, if you like, to it. There have been initiatives to support researchers coming from Ukraine. The main initiatives that I'd be aware of are those that offer supports for students coming from Ukraine to start their university studies or continue the university studies, understanding that there are various supports that they need. For example, how does the funding work? How does the CAO, the Central Applications Office for Universities, work? All of this. So I have been involved, for example, in providing workshops in schools and workshops, online workshops for individuals who are looking to access from Ukraine, who are looking to access university places in Ireland, any university, not just MTU, and then supporting the students who come to MTU to register, and then I have a Telegram channel for students who, so that they constantly have somebody to come back to if they have particular questions. So coming up to exam time, after exam time, coming up to, you know, how do I register for next year and everything. There are kind of peak periods, but it's a similar model that we would have used for other students who might have been at risk within my department, or students who, for example, come from a care background, or some that it's always good to have, for those students, to have somebody they can say, I don't know the answer to this, but I know who I can ask. and that has been, if you like, the basis of the supports that I have been involved with for Ukrainian students. And there's something similar in some of the other universities in the For EU for All as well. But through my meeting individuals from the Ukrainian community living in Kerry, there are 10,000 in my particular region. Some of them have come from universities, or some of them have connections with the universities, and we have been able to develop potential collaborations with 3 or 4 universities at this stage, plus local government as well. So it's just a really interesting thing. Part of the mission of MTU is obviously to engage with the local and regional and national and international communities. So this is at the far end of that, if you like, in terms of reaching out to assist or to collaborate constructively with universities in Ukraine.
That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, maybe Michael, going back to your role specifically in MTU, we mentioned earlier about the various work packages in different universities are leading different work packages. What specifically is MTU leading out in at the moment?
Well, we're leading, there are 10 work packages. Specifically, we are leading out on work package 8, which is innovation and entrepreneurship. There's representatives from each of the universities on that work package committee, and they have a series of deliverables to achieve, and that's what they have been doing. It is no coincidence then that in terms of what are called the flagship programs, these are master's degrees and bachelor degrees, that we are leading out. MTU is leading out on the bachelor program in innovation and entrepreneurship. That has a host department here with a head of department, and a number of those staff will be developing. But and our colleagues who are leading work package 8 are also involved in that. And then there are about 4 other universities are going to collaborate with us as well. So we're going to create a degree program whereby students from different universities can learn together over the 3 or 4 years. It's not fully developed yet, but and that's our contribution. There are other master's degrees being led by other universities, but I think it's fair to say that we contribute very constructively. I think the individuals on the project are very open-minded. They're very Europe focused, if you like. So I think we make ourselves known in there, but I think we're good listeners too. So we're learning as well as contributing. But as I said, the work package 8, innovation and entrepreneurship. Very soon there will be a network of technology transfer offices across the universities alliance, so that they can exchange technologies. There will be what's called hot desking for entrepreneurs in each of the universities, where if I'm an entrepreneur in Ireland, I can go to Spain or I could go to Italy and be offered a desk, an internet, and that, just as a base for a while, where I explore markets in that, or collaborations in that area. So it's not just academic programs, it's about research, and it's about supporting industry to do better or to explore other markets.
It's great, isn't it? Like, to have that opportunity, and what you described there, that if I want to go to another country, I have that, or university, I have that opportunity and have a space where I can go, engage, learn. Like, that's really something that could have massive impact for that person or that university. So
absolutely, and it's a simple thing. It's to know that you can go somewhere and we'll provide you with a desk, we'll provide you with internet, we'll provide you with and it's simple, but it means a lot.
And as well, you mentioned the kind of it's open to a lot wider community. Sometimes we see the student and sometimes we see academic staff in terms of INGENIUM, but we forget that there's this wider community that can engage with it.
Oh, definitely. The whole philosophy of INGENIUM is that it's not just students. It is students and it is academic staff, but it's also technical support staff, it's administrative staff, it is teaching and learning experts. It's all of those individuals. and at all levels of the university, because in essence we're trying to create a university out of universities, so it necessarily has to include everybody else. But in addition to staff of the universities, we have associate partners as well, which includes SMEs, small medium enterprises. We have some local agencies as well in and around all of the university partners. So it's a much bigger community than just students and staff.
I guess kind of moving on there, you kind of mentioned the different flagship programs, and you mentioned some of the MA students. I'm wondering, are there any other initiatives that will be on offer to undergrad students?
Yeah, one of the initiatives this year that it makes me smile because it's such a fabulous thing is the student partnership projects, and these are a call for students to pitch ideas for research, for services, for just any idea that could be open to collaboration. So we've had our first call. Our first call, I think, gave rise to 120 something individuals who responded to say, I have an idea, or we have an idea. And there are 12 projects now that are funded. The funding will include some equipment, some consumables, as we call it, but critically I think that most of the funding includes some travel as well, so that students can meet and they can or meet around particular events. But everything from a healthy campus initiative to creating a particular product to researching intercultural exchanges or how people interpret, the language and the emotions of different students. It has just been really interesting, the variety, and I was overwhelmed, I have to say, with the hugely positive response by students in saying, I really like to do this. This is my idea. These are my colleagues from be it France or Sweden or Italy or Greece and or Spain, and we're ready for this. If we can have this amount of money, and very modest amounts, it was they had it thought through, so that it was almost. It's quite easy to say yes to those, but there'll be another call on that later this year once we have some learning done from that first call. In addition, there will be education labs. There will be first half. There will be other collaborative approaches. There will be there will be micro credentials. There will be a number of things on offer that help to bring everybody together.
I think those student partnerships are amazing. I was talking to Juan about it recently in one of the episodes for the podcast, and kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier on, just the impact. Like that's an example of a potentially transformative experience for those students. That international partnership.
It is. It's about what can you do in INGENIUM that would be difficult to do if you just had another collaborative partner university in Europe. And these are the things. It would be an awful lot of work to try and find partners and convince them to say, let's put some money into a pot and we'll ask students to pitch for ideas. And it's really one of the added values of a European university that you can get such a diverse, you can reach out to such a diverse skill set across a university alliance and fund their enthusiasm, if you like, in terms of getting getting something real or real life-changing, or real life-changing experience, I think.
Yeah, and I think Juan in that episode 7, actually, Jeremiah, you referred to there, talked about this kind of bottom-up approach. So now the students are leading these initiatives and taking charge. I think that's very, very powerful. And I think in our first episode with the director, Anna, she talked about that everything we do is for the students. So it's nice to see that kind of shift to co-creation where the students are leading and taking charge and taking ownership of the INGENIUM Alliance. So that's really positive to hear.
Yeah. And it's funny, I've been at a lot of conferences lately, as I'm sure you both have, and AI is always like a kind of a central entity in the middle of all of that. And in the kind of learning and teaching space that I would be involved in, or the edtech space, it's often a lot about assessment. How do we assess students now in terms of AI? But actually, maybe the value is how do we nurture their learning and how do we kind of push them forward and move them forward? And that student partnership, they're not being assessed. Well, they're being, I guess, assessed in terms of their proposal and their idea and their outputs. But just that learning experience, maybe they're the kind of things in the kind of AI age that are actually of more and more value.
I think so, and I think the responsibility the students have when they receive funding like this is that they're accountable for it, and they said they would do something and they need to do it. At the same time, very clear that they're able to do this, and I think what they practice as they will do these projects is critical thinking and innovation. And I think with that growth mindset, with that critical thinking mindset, you could argue at least that they will be better able to make the most of AI, for example, than just, apologies, used AI to assist them with something. They actually can be more in charge of what AI is doing for them, and I think that's development. That's what higher education is about. I think people being empowered to take on the world and technologies for their own use, as opposed to the other way around, maybe.
Yeah, so Michael, I'm going to use the football match analogy here. So the Ingenium Alliance is kind of halfway through. We've played the first half. We've had the midterm review, the team talk, and we're getting ready now to go to the second half. What are you most looking forward to for the second half of the Ingenium project?
Okay, given that it's the second half, there will be a full-time whistle at some stage, and what we hope is that this isn't the end, that this is, there will be the opportunity to apply for further funding and to continue. I think we have achieved so much in our short 2.5 years of Ingenium so far. I think we're all working very hard to achieve what we said we would achieve and justify continuing the Ingenium adventure, I'm going to call it, for another 4 years, and hopefully beyond as well. We have yet to see what challenges or what the European Commission actually say we need to do in the second generation of these, but I think we're off to a good start, and I'm hopeful. So certainly we have made some very good friends and very good colleagues across the Ingenium Alliance. So I think that will come into sharper focus over the next while. But I think it's important for anyone interested in becoming involved in Ingenium or wondering what Ingenium means to them, to look at the Ingenium website, to realise that we are fast tracking. We are introducing a lot of different calls over the next 6 months and the next 6 to 8 months or so. So look at the Ingenium website. It's ingenium-university.eu. Look at that, look for events, look for programs on offer, and if to students and staff involved, if something piques your interest, get in touch. There's contact details on the website, and we have our own Ingenium office here as well. So please do that. We'd be delighted to talk to you.
One thing that I think is worth maybe mentioning is the relations part. So this, I think, is really important. That I think Ingenium is getting stronger because the relationships are a lot stronger.
Yeah.
People the community is a lot stronger together. And I think from when I was involved in Ingenium maybe a year and a half ago to the first, in one of the 10 days to maybe the last 10 days, you can see this kind of relationship building and
That's
a community
true.
building and an energy building.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice to see that. And I think that's the key for the success of the project, I think, is the relationships.
I think so.
And nurturing those,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think as we, each time we meet, there's a stronger relationship, there's a stronger understanding, and you get people saying, do you know what we were talking about the last time? Well, I've been thinking, and then that spills out into emailed conversations and that. So, I think we are I'd like to think, and I think we are, the stronger, bigger than the sum of the individual parts. I think there's great synergies across the alliance, as there is, I'm sure, in other alliances. But this one is ours, and we really feel that we have the right people and the right thinking, and hopefully now we're in this for the long term.
A big thank you to Dr. Michael Hall for taking the time to speak to us for the INGENIUM podcast. It's been great working with Michael as the new IPC here at MTU, and it's great to hear his enthusiasm for the next 2 years of the INGENIUM Alliance until the next stage of things. So Tom, given that it's the last episode of season 1, it might be nice to just reflect back on the last 8 episodes and wonder, what takeaways or any thoughts about the last 8 episodes you have?
Yeah, I think one thing that struck for me, Jeremiah, was the passion at which the guests kind of spoke about their area, their university, their students, their staff. And I think that came through in a lot of episodes. But I think particularly the episode we had with Inez, which was episode 2, where she talked about her experience as a student mentor. And I think she just maybe highlighted that, the INGENIUM Junior in schools, like the opportunity it has for students to experience mobility and actually that might be their only opportunity. And she kind of highlighted about, how the students inspired her, and what she learned from it and just the opportunity it was just to watch them engage and interact with each other and kind of go through this process of, a challenging week where they have to do work and work in groups and collaborate for some purpose and for some outcome. And I think she talked about, watching her students go through that process. And I think, the passion which she spoke about the process, the passion which she spoke about engaging with the students and the whole, 10 days, I think was quite powerful. So that was definitely one thing that I took from a lot of the speakers, but particularly, our conversation with Inez around her experience as a student mentor. And anything stood out for you, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I think something that we both talked about before we did this, which was the aim of trying to tell the stories of the people and the places of the Alliance. I think that's something we, in some measure we succeeded in doing. Like in that same episode, in that conversation with Inez, you spoke to Lisa Riedel. Lisa talked a little bit about her home city or the city that she's based in Karlsruhe. And, just those little nuggets of information, the history of the bicycle in Karlsruhe, I thought that was lovely. Just hearing just a little bit about all of these different places. Anna told us a little bit about the Asturias region in Spain. We were both fortunate to travel to Mikkeli in Finland and got to meet all the people there and the wonderful welcome that we had there. And to hear and learn about all these places has been really, really interesting. And I think one of the challenges of an international university alliance like this is that wide geographic spread. And while we have been fortunate to travel to all of these places, for others who have not been, I think, just these little pictures that people paint of their home places, I think is a really lovely thing and something that the podcast allows or kind of facilitates.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think listening to different cultures and experiencing the different cultures is something that is powerful. And also I think maybe having a deeper understanding of where people are coming from and their background and their history is really important. I think it strengthens the alliance and we can build relationships that I think are powerful moving forward when we kind of have a better understanding of people's cultures and backgrounds. So I think, that's something that has come through the conversations. While you were talking there, Jeremiah, one other thing I think that was what really struck for me was kind of the student-centeredness of the INGENIUM Alliance. Anna said something, and I don't think she meant to quote Bryan Adams when she said it, but she said, everything we do it for you, the student. And I think that's really a powerful message from the director. And I think that came very strongly through in episode 7 that you had, like when you spoke to Juan about the student partnerships and that whole idea. And you could hear the energy for it, the passion for it. I love the way he describes student partnerships as kind of a bottom-up initiative that belong to the whole community, that are implemented by the students. And I think that's a kind of powerful message. And it came through, I think, through every conversation we had, even the most recent one with Michael. And I'll say one other thing, actually. The episode that Nic and Annabelle had, I think you get to really hear from their perspective what INGENIUM means. And I think they showed a really honest picture of the challenges they had as part of engaging as part of the various schools they were in. And I think it's good to hear that and good to hear their student perspective. So I think just to summarise there's definitely a real obvious, from our conversation, it's really obvious that the INGENIUM Alliance is student-centred. And I think the more conversations we can have with students moving forward, I think, they add a lot of value to the conversation. They're really important. It's really important that we hear that student voice. And I think that episode with Nic and Annabelle was very, very moving and meaningful and powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's one of my favourite episodes of the season as well. I thought that was really good. They had a really rich conversation. Like you said, really truthful, and it was really interesting that it was the first time they'd both met each other, and they really, with great enthusiasm, really dived into that conversation, which was really good. And so hopefully it's something we can do more of in the next season. Maybe, given that we just spoke to Michael about it and the last episode with Juan, it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of those student partnerships. So maybe there'll be good opportunities to speak to some more students about that. Maybe more students who go to the winter and summer schools as well. So I think maybe, is that something we'll try and do more next season?
Yeah, definitely. And Joey, as well, I think for us, maybe setting out, we kind of wanted to inform and educate people a little bit more about the INGENIUM Alliance. I think having the conversations with Anna and the various IPCs that we spoke to, Ave as well, you do get a sense of a bit more about small little nuggets of information about what's going on within the partnerships at the various levels. And I think I think we should be proud of the fact that this podcast has showcased it and evidenced some of that good work, and hopefully has informed the audience, the students and staff that engage with the INGENIUM Alliance, a little bit more about what's going on the ground and what it actually means and what it looks like. So I think the podcast, has achieved that aim in its first season. And I look forward to kind of maybe building a little bit more and finding a little bit more about the little projects and initiatives that going on, led by students, as you mentioned there, led by staff. And I think it's an exciting space now of after the midterm review of where the INGENIUM moves forward, has impact and makes change. So looking forward to seeing what happens there.
Yeah, even thinking back to the conversation we had with Tina, Kai and Nora back in episode 3, and they told us a lot about the education lab projects and the micro-credentials. And I guess loads of the work that they'd been doing and talking about was kind of at that higher level. It's, getting the ideas of the initiatives together, rolling them out, doing the kind of open calls and so on. But like you said, now that these things will start hitting the ground running in the new year, we'll see that tangible impact. It'll be great to maybe follow up with them or some of the projects that have emerged out of that as well. That's going to be really interesting in season 2 as well.
Yeah, another thing I think the podcast has done, Jeremiah, I think, is that you get to hear from the people and you get kind of sense of who they are, as you mentioned, where they're from and their history, and also you get to you've kind of a face and a voice of the various projects and the various people within the INGENIUM community. And I think that's good to have that, because it strengthens and builds relationships. So hopefully when people, if they've listened to an episode and they meet these people, there's already maybe a small little bit of connection there, that they've listened to them, they've heard their voice, they've heard what they're about. So I think there's something in that as well. I think that the podcast has kind of maybe connected some people across the INGENIUM Alliance that might have been not connected otherwise, or maybe we've just seen the person's name on a website or on a piece of paper, but now we can hear from them, get to know them a bit more and hear their experiences, which I think is nice to have that.
Yeah, and it's also digging down to the individual parts of the university. So the numbers of the University Alliance are very significant. There's 10 universities, there's thousands of students, hundreds and hundreds of staff. But I guess we've had the opportunity to dig down to meet a handful of those people, maybe 10 or so people across the season, but just to have an in-depth conversation with some of those people, I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I think if people are listening here and they want to get in touch or they want to be part of the conversation, we'd love to hear from people. And we're doing this idea, leading this project. I'd love to talk to you about it. And I think that we'd encourage people to engage with us and get in touch and see how they can contribute to the podcast in season 2.
Yeah, and likewise, if people have feedback on it, if they want to offer us constructive feedback, if something could be done a little bit better, or if they'd like to hear more of this, less of that, or whatever it might be, feel free to reach out to myself or Tom via LinkedIn or by email or whatever way you can reach us. We'd love to hear from you, in that sense as well.
Yeah, Jeremy, I suppose we probably should acknowledge as well and thank a number of people before we finish up the season 1 of this, the INGENIUM podcast. So a few of those people, first of all, I think we need to recognise people with MTU, Agnes and Sean McSweeney, particularly when we kind of proposed the idea of this podcast, quite quickly. They were very positive about it. They got right behind it. They supported us and allowed us to kind of, start this process. So I think they deserve a lot of credit, and Michael as well, for engaging in this episode today, but also as well his support behind the scenes going forward and into season 2. So I suppose we'd like to thank particularly those 3 people within MTU for helping us launch the podcast and for the continued support.
And then also everyone who's supported us in terms of the communications. So again, Agnes and Alina, and everyone involved in Work Package 10 who've been instrumental in the communications part of this, helping to push it out. So thanks to them. And also to thank our heads of department who've made time for Tom and I to work on this. Cian O'Neill, head of department over at Sport, Leisure and Childhood Studies, and Garrod O'Sulawan, head of department over at the Department of Technology Enhanced Learning.
Yeah, and I think all our guests to date, they've given a lot of time to first of all have the conversations, to prepare for what they're going to say. Sometimes it's sometimes not easy coming on and actually recording your voice and actually having a conversation. So we'd like to thank them for their time, but I think more importantly, as I said before, their energy and passion that they brought to the podcast. I think they wanted to tell a story. They wanted to be positive and share the insights of the INGENIUM Alliance, and we appreciate the time and the energy they gave at different points, particularly those that maybe when we went to ZAMF, and those we met, I think you met Juan recently in Crete. It can be hard for people that are going to present and attend these other conferences, or these other INGENIUM, and do a lot of work as part of the 10 days. So we'd like to thank those for taking time out of their schedule to engage with the podcast. We're very appreciative of that.
Yeah, with that said, I guess we would like to wish everyone who's listened and engaged with the podcast a great summer. Have a great summer, and we look forward to speaking to you all again in season 2 from September onwards.